Hey, Shelley here. I'm so happy you're joining us again for our third free video. In the first video, we taught you how to knit. Second video, we taught you how to purl. And today I'm going to show you how to yarn over. With these three skills, you're going to be a knitter with a capital K. You're going to make so many amazing projects, and you're going to unlock this creative part of yourself that leads directly to a more fulfilling, more productive, more stylish kind of life. So I promised I'd tell you the story of the Effin scarf. One of our longtime Loops Troops employees is named Loretta. And one day Loretta came in wearing the cutest scarf. And we were all like, Loretta, where did you find that pattern? And she's like, oh, I designed it. And I said, oh, you've got to give me that pattern. I want to share it with our customers. But she wouldn't do it because she kept making more prototypes. Loretta's a little OCD, and she likes to make lots of prototypes. And she probably made 20 prototypes of this scarf. And I think a year went by, and finally one day I said, Loretta, you've got to share that pattern. And she said, okay, I'll give you the pattern for that Effin scarf. So the name for this project was born. This pattern is so fantastic. It's really versatile. It works in all types of yarns, all types of gauges, almost any fiber. It just works best with a fiber that has some drape to it. But we have made a million of these scarves. You are just gonna love this pattern. So now we're back in our Loops classroom, and I've changed into my latest Effin scarf, and I'm going to show you how to make the Effin scarf. So to start out, you're going to need 300 yards of DK weight yarn. And actually, the pattern works great with a wide variety of yarns, so you can work with anything from a fingering weight all the way up to a chunky yarn. But you do want to yarn with some drape, like linen works great, cotton, or silk. Anything with some drape to it, as opposed to a bouncy 100% merino, because you want to get the drape is what makes it look really great in the finished product. So for this piece, I actually took a DK weight yarn and I'm going to hold it double. And a lot of times holding yarns double freaks people out, but it's actually a very simple thing. I like to take the yarn, I'm going to take the ball bands off this yarn. And just to make sure the yarn doesn't get tangled in my knitting bag, I like to keep each individual ball of yarn in a separate Ziploc bag. This is also a great technique for once you learn how to do the knit stitch, combining a couple of yarns together. So you might have a nice smooth merino or wool yarn and then a fun novelty yarn, and you knit them together at the same time. Okay, now I've got my materials ready for my Effin scarf, and we're going to get started. The original Effin scarf pattern that we have sold more of than any other Loops original pattern says to cast on fewer stitches, but over time we've learned that the optimal number of stitches is 70 stitches. If you cast on 70 stitches to start the project, you can actually create a scarf with fewer stitches of yarn, and you're going to get a shape that hangs better when you wear it. So our new Effin scarf pattern starts with 70 stitches. So I'm going to start by holding my two strands together. And I just kind of slide them together so they'll act as one strand. Then I make my slip knot just like normal and slide that onto my needle. And you can see that the two strands really just become one. And as I pull them, they're going to stay in their happy place, each in their own little bag, and not get tangled together. But now it makes a thicker strand to work with, which is a little easier to manage when working with this particular yarn. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cast on 70 stitches. And then, and see I'm using the knit on cast on from our how to purl video, my favorite cast on. And after I get 70 stitches cast on, I'm going to knit 3 rows. Okay, so now we've cast on 70 stitches and we've knit 3 rows. And now I'm going to show you how to do the yarn over. First, according to the pattern, we're going to knit 2 stitches. And then to yarn over, you're simply going to wrap the yarn around the back of the needle and through the center of the 2 needles, just like when you wrap the yarn when you're doing a knit stitch. So again, just around the back and through the middle. Then we're going to knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over. And then we're going to continue to knit all the way across the row. Now a yarn over is actually an increase because you're adding a stitch to your work. And that's what gives this scarf the nice sloped shape, is that you're going to be increasing in every single row at the beginning of the row by doing those 3 yarn overs. So now I'm going to knit all the way to the end of my row. And since our other yarn we're using for our Effin scarf is a little bit finer, let me show you how this works in a chunkier yarn. I'm going to knit my first 2 stitches. And I'm going to do my yarn over. I'm going to take the yarn around the back of the needle and through the 2 needles. And I'm going to knit the next one. And what that's going to do is form sort of a half stitch from that yarn over. Yarn over, knit, yarn over, knit. And you can see that that knit stitch is anchored down into the knitted work, but the yarn over stitch is sort of just a half, it's just sort of lapped over the needle. It's not actually attached down in the work below. So here's a knit that's attached, and here's a yarn over that's not attached. And what that's going to do is when you knit back across this row on your next row, it's going to leave a little eyelet or a little hole in your knitting, but you want this particular hole because it's a nice little design accent, plus it's actually an increase. So by increasing on every row, doing 3 yarn overs at the beginning of the row, it's going to create, and it's going to continually increase your scarf and create a long sloped shape to your scarf. So now I'm almost to the end of my first yarn over row on my Effin scarf. And when you get to the end, go ahead and just turn your work. And now you're going to do that exact same row over and over and over and over. This is really just a 1 row pattern, and you're going to use that same row over and over until your scarf is as big as you want it or until you're almost out of yarn. Then you're just going to simply cast off very, very loosely. With this scarf, it's really important to get a loose cast off. So we tell a lot of people go up to the next size needle, maybe a 15 or a 17, or just be intentionally very loose with your cast off, and that'll give you the really good drape and not too tight of a seam on the edge of your piece. This pattern is so versatile. Like I said before, you can make it out of almost any kind of yarn. They're kind of addictive to make because they're so easy and mindless, and it's fun to see the yarn develop on this larger size needle. Like I mentioned, Loretta loves to make prototypes. So she not only made the one I'm wearing, but she made another one that had 4 strands held together. And in this version, instead of doing a yarn over, she did another kind of increase. She did a knit front and back, which is a really common increase. So you don't even have to have the yarn overs to make the piece look fantastic. And I like to wear my Effin scarf bandana style like this, but you can also wear them shawl style, just simply around the back like your shoulders to keep your shoulders warm, or you can wear it just like a really long scarf. Here's the pattern so you can get a screen grab and save it on your phone, tablet, or computer. So, if you've watched all 3 of these free videos and you've made all 3 projects, then you can officially say that you are a knitter with a capital K.